A show of hands, how many of you in this audience, all those who had a neck problem, a back problem in so many years of practice, please put your hands up. Almost 80% of you. Well, join the gang. This story is my story. I think Dr. Bojraj would remember a few years ago, there was a conference in Bombay at the Leela, and I spent the entire conference like this, because that was the only position of comfort I had. At that time, I was 48, practiced for about 18 years, caseload about 300 cases per year, mostly open, and I had actually developed pain, weakness, and numbness. But like Larry Lenke, I even refused to do an MRI. I just waited it out, took some anti-inflammatories, and things settled down over a period of 3 to 4 weeks. Another colleague of mine, who is one of the organizers for this meeting, practiced a little junior to me, caseload 400 cases a year, largely minimally invasive spine surgery, 2 developed a cervical radiculopathy, but in his case, unfortunately, he failed to respond, and he underwent an uneventful ACDF. Friends, today's talk, after a lot of thought, I was thinking what I should speak on, but when I saw this advent of minimally invasive surgery, endoscopic surgery, etc., I thought it would be very apt to bring it to all of your notices that there is a serious occupational hazard with these surgeries. All of you must be expecting me to speak on radiation, but radiation has been covered to death. So I'm going to go and talk about something different. Occupational hazards to spine surgeons or professionals are many, as the WHO outlines them: biological, chemical, physical, etc. Among the physical hazards are radiation and musculoskeletal problems. As I said, radiation has already been covered in a number of conferences in a number of different ways. So I'm going to stick to talking about what we knew the best, and that is musculoskeletal problems. I'm sure all of you are aware of that. All of you are taking care of it in some way or the other a little bit. But I think it is high time somebody brought this to your notice, that how dangerous is the work environment in which you practice. This is the incidence of musculoskeletal problems in orthopods. Neck pain, almost 65% of them. Upper limb radiculopathy, 30%. And so on and so forth. Low back pain, another 65%. Again, lower limb radiculopathy, also 30%. Look at the incidence of cervical disc herniation, rotator cuff pathologies, etc. Now, when we move over to spine surgeons, the incidence of neck pain is almost 40%. Shoulder girdle pain, upper neck, shoulder girdle pain, 50%. Radiculopathy, almost 28%. Then you had rotator cuff problems, tennis elbow, lower limb radiculopathy, and varicose veins. About 25% of them take leave of absence for these problems, reduce their workload, and some have even been forced into early retirement. 55% of them receive some kind of treatment. 7% of them have had lumbar spine surgery, and 4.5% have cervical spine injuries. Risk factors are the age of the person, the caseload, the type of cases, whether they're doing long deformity cases or minimally invasive spine surgery, these incidence is much higher. And of course, the use of equipment such as microscope and loops. So why are spine surgeons more vulnerable than other groups? Spine surgeons, dental surgeons, ophthalmologists, plastic surgeons, all of these people stare through microscopes for long hours. The spine surgery is long, delicate surgeries. There is a prolonged static posture. And when you are doing a static posture, one group of muscles overworks, whereas the other group of muscle doesn't work, and that results in severe fatigue and pain. Repetitive movements, use of heavy lead gowns, use of loops and microscopes in practice, which put you through to abnormal postures, poorly designed operating rooms, multiply competing equipment. Now with minimally invasive surgery, you have neuromonitoring, you have a C-arm coming in, at the same time you are doing endoscopic surgery, or you have a microscope there, and you have to lean over these instruments to do your surgeries. Surgeries performing MISS are even more vulnerable than regular open spine surgeons. Longer operative times, awkward, often constrained postures, as you can see over here, 2 C-arms coming in and you are leaning over to grab your instruments. A fight for space. So how do you prevent these problems? While there is no complete prevention, there are certain things which you can adapt in your practice which may help you. A proper posture, some ergonomics, technology integration, micro breaks, exercises, and working in teams. Let's go through each of these. We all know as spine surgeons that a good posture is energy efficient. It allows you to work efficiently, it delays fatigue and limits injuries. So what should be the ideal operative procedure? The ideal operative position is one where you are standing in a neutral position and the table should be reaching somewhere around the area of your hip joint. You should be working down and not up. So the shoulder should be down here, relaxed and abducted about 25 to 30 degrees. A majority of the times, shoulders are abducted because what happens? Your table is very high. Why is the table high? Because you want the C-arm to come below it for an AP view. So when you get a C-arm for an AP view, you automatically table has to be high. If the table has to be high, your endoscope and whatever instruments you are putting goes up high. So all the stress comes up onto your periscapular muscles, the axial shoulder girdle muscles. The arms and elbows should ideally be relaxed and should be in a neutral position at the shoulder, about 90 degrees of elbow flexion with 90. And there should be a little bit of distance between of about 60 degrees between your working instruments. The shoulder, as I said, relax, abduction less than 30 degrees. Forearm and elbows, the forearm should be parallel to the floor. So, and the arm should be perpendicular to the floor. The neck flexion should be less than 30 degrees. A lot of time people are doing this. And that type of neck flexion is likely to injure your neck. Avoid prolonged static postures. All these are important things when you plan your OT. One of the things which the laparoscopic surgeons have done is they lower the height of the table. So they are working essentially like this and they are not working like this. That works very well for them. The problem with us is that our C-arm has to come from below the table. And that is why we raise the height. Look at this, a very famous endoscopic surgeon. Look at the height. He's already raised the table so that the C-arm can go below it. He's standing on a platform which is almost 12 inches tall. Even then, he is not able to use his instruments without abducting the shoulder to almost 90 degrees. I worked with him. I actually went and assisted him for a few surgeries to see how it works. By the end of each surgery, I was in absolute agony as far as my upper back and periscapular muscles was concerned. Remember that good OTs are not only about size, they are about how they are designed. A lot of the times, what happens is that the OT height is not adequate. So when you take the table up higher, you are worried about touching the overhead lights, etc. So it's a lot of problems and your OT has to be well thought of if you are going to use endoscopic and minimally invasive surgery. If you are going to use this surgery in today's day and age for better ergonomics, technology integration is absolutely vital. Navigation, robots, augmented reality, which is the near future, are technologies which should be adapted to your setup so that you can reduce the workload and fatigue of your muscles. Adjusting workloads, I think none of you is ever going to agree to this. But if you can balance your workload, instead of doing 2 scolies a day, you do 1 scoli and maybe a couple of discs and plan your surgeries in such a way that the amount of fatigue is less for your muscles, the amount of pain is less, you will reduce injuries, you will improve concentration. During the surgery, every time I have a long surgery, I take micro breaks. Every half an hour, 40 minutes, I just stand away from the table, stretch out a little bit with the neck or back, and try to get the maximum stretching of my muscles, which reduces the pain. The key to all this is exercise. Yesterday I saw Ashwin Khange, a very famous endoscopic surgeon in Bombay, and I just happened to say, "Hi Ashwin," and I found that his muscles, which were previously like this, are suddenly now this thick. I asked him what he did, and he told me he has been working very hard because the endoscopic surgery makes him very tired and the muscles start hurting. So he's been working out in the gym on a regular basis in order to strengthen his muscles and reduce the risk of injury. The final thing is, of course, all of us should learn is to work in teams. That reduces stress, reduces fatigue, improves your efficiency, and enhances outcomes. So my friends, the message I wanted to give you was, you need to take care of yourself so that you can take care of others. We all know that minimally invasive spine surgery, endoscopic spine surgery is here to stay, and probably will become the norm for all spine pathologies in all regions of the spine within the next 5 or 10 years. And that is probably the reason why there is so much interest in this conference today. Patients and local administrators do not care about you. You need to learn to care about yourself. Every patient comes and wants even a scoliosis surgery endoscopically. Can you do it? If you can't, it's probably, if you feel that the environment is not adequate so that you can do it safely, please avoid it. Prioritize ergonomics from the time of training to putting it in practice. There are very small changes which need to be implemented in order to prevent long-term injury. And remember that regular exercise is absolutely crucial. And it's not only, a lot of people tell me, "Sir, I go every day half an hour jogging." Jogging for half an hour does not do anything for your neck, it doesn't do anything for your back. You need to do some weight training exercises, and you need to do some regular stretches in order to improve the situation. Thank you.